Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day to day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started.
Hello, everyone. I am here with you today to chat with you a little bit about mindful leadership. But before we dive in, I just wanted to reintroduce myself. I am Jessica Maine, the CSOO inside of the Lean Out Method as well as Strategic Ops Institute. Krista and I have worked together for many years, so you're not new to who I am if you've been around for a while. But for those that may not be as familiar with me, I just wanted to take a moment and say hi. Today, we are going to dive into what mindful leadership is. And if anyone knows me, they know that I have a love for the whole person, the mental aspect of everything, and just holistically, I feel like you show up as a human first, and then you're here to get the work done. So, with that being said, really wanted to just dive into some aspects of mindful leadership and how that pairs well with the fact that it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so that's kind of my special place to dwell. And while I'm just taking over the podcast for this episode, I thought it would be something that a lot of us could benefit from, especially as we are already like full fledged into Q2. It's hard to believe how fast this year has gone by. But either way, it's really a nice space to be able to take a pause, slow down, recalibrate if we need to ensure that we wrap up Q2 strong, and then we just go into the second half of the year as strong as possible. All right, so let's take a minute and just talk about what mindful leadership is. Seems relatively self-explanatory, but when you put it into the perspective of what is mindful leadership when you're trying to scale, there's a little bit more to it than just the simple, just slowing down to be present. And so, whenever it comes to being mindful in your leadership as you are looking to scale, it's one thing to really be mindful of the intentionality with what you're doing, the empathy behind it, as well as being self aware. And so, the more you are combining those three, the outcomes will positively impact you, your team, and your overall business. Because the more that we talk about scaling, this big buzzword, we are very aware that oftentimes you scale what exists, you amplify what exists. And so, as of right now, if there are some things that you recognize within your team that you would like to see adjusted, it's better to do that before you get to the point where you're amplifying that, because you don't want to amplify anything that might be negative or whatever the case may be. So let's just kind of dive in and go from there. So we'll talk about the three components, how it affects you, your team, as well as your overall business. All right. So one of the things that we think about when you're not leading mindfully is that the cost is being in a reactive state. And so you might have these symptoms of feeling like you're hustling a little too hard, you're working far beyond the hours in which you would deem as acceptable. Burnout is upon you, or you're already beyond that stage. You might feel like you're in this state of chaos, you're always putting out the fires, you're in survival mode. um and one of the things about it is you can't simplify if you're in a state of survival or just go mode at all times, because you really need to slow down to be intentional. So those are some of the signs that or the symptoms that might show up if you realize that you are. A couple other things is that you might be making decisions just to be able to get things off of your plate. So as you are navigating through your day to day, you might have a team member that reaches out to you and asks you a question, and you're just making a quick impulsive decision just to basically check it off the list or to not be the bottleneck for whatever it is that they're trying to do. If you find yourself doing that relatively in a frequent manner, then you might want to kind of consider that you could be a bit more mindful. You keep adding tools, people, and offers thinking that you'll have more capacity, but what ends up happening is the tools, people, and the offers end up taking up more of your time because you're trying to implement it in a way uh, that could help you be, in order for it to be able to work efficiently within the business. Adding additional components only adds more to your plate. So if you find yourself thinking that, oh, if I just add another team member, that this is going to solve it, that additional team member still has to be onboarded, et cetera. So if you just adding additional things, not really thinking about it, and delegating reactively instead of strategically. So I know we're careful the way we use the word delegation because in today's time, what delegation means for us is a little different than what it means in a common sense or in a common literal sense of the word. It's just you find yourself playing checkers and not chess, and so when you're able to make those decisions in a way where you are being strategic, you can think a couple of steps ahead. And so if you find that you are delegating some type of activity or offloading something to someone else and you're doing it in a state that's actually reactive because you don't have the capacity versus you were giving it to them for them to own it in a way to where you don't have to worry about it, you're going to have to circle back anyway. So it's important to make sure that you are mindfully leading with that. So as you are delegating and shifting an activity, a task, or responsibility to someone else, are you actually letting it go? Or are you just having them make some progress with it in the interim until you can get back to it? So those are some of the signs and the symptoms, so to speak, of not having mindful leadership the way that could make a lasting positive impact within your business. So let's talk about how mindful leadership can actually positively impact your team first. When you take the time to connect with your team in a way where you are providing support, empathy, and you are also empowering them, you have the ability to bring out the best in your people. And so I always like to make sure that we're bridging the gap between the reality of someone that's present on the team and their potential. And they can't reach their potential because you see it in them. They reach their potential because they see it in themselves. The best leaders are the ones that can actually tap into that and be able to help any team member that they lead or have an impact on a consistent basis. They have the impact on helping them bridge that gap. And so, how you go about doing that is having open, honest communication with them in a consistent manner. Now, the cadences don't all have to be very high touch or whatever the case may be, but having very intentional conversations, creating a safe space where they know that they can communicate and talk with you, that they know you're challenging them, but you're also being mindful of not spreading them beyond the point to where it becomes detrimental. So really having that desire to want to help them grow and help them see things that they may not see for themselves. And then that safety is also critical to be able to share I call them like golden nuggets of information to where they give you the feedback and you know it's for your good versus it being something that's not going to be beneficial. An example of that for me is if I'm leading a particular session, I want Krista to be able to give me feedback and say, "Hey, what did you think about this?" Or I might even say, "I this was my thought or feeling with this particular part. Did that stand out for you the same way?" Um, and those conversations fuel me because then it's a good ideation moment, as well as allowing me to think forward about what will I do differently? How will I grow? How will I expand in ways beyond what may have even gone well, but I want to be better. So when you have that safety cultivated and that culture cultivated within your team, then it's a game changing experience. So you want to make sure that you're empowering your team, creating that safe space, and you're empathizing with where they are. Empathy is extremely important, especially as it contributes to the safety within the team and how they feel like they can collaborate with each other as well. Because it's important to be able to meet people on a human level where they actually are. And I know I touched on that a bit earlier, but when you take time to connect with someone and know what their experiences might be, that comes from having that consistent cadence and connecting with them and talking and engaging in that honest communication to where you've had the dialogue to where it doesn't feel as critical. They can receive feedback and you can as well. But that empathy is critical because everyone has life experiences. I know whenever I was going through a lot with my father when he passed away, I needed time. I knew that I wanted to be really, really careful about taking care of myself throughout that process. In order to do that, Kristen had to be extremely empathetic with me, which she was exceptionally empathetic. And I'm so grateful for that because even to this day, I can say I'm having a day, a moment, or whatever it might be. And I'm always given that grace because I'm a human and because I can actually take the time to be honest about what my experience is. And I know that she's going to empathize with me in a way where she allows room for that. Because once I have that moment, I snap back and I can get back in my groove. It's when I neglect that moment that it starts to fester and it grows. And because it's not handled properly, it can trickle into other areas in the way I work and the way I might think because I didn't take a moment to have a half a day or 15 minutes to just kind of regroup. So, making sure that you're empathizing with your team members with their experiences professionally, and even if you don't engage with them on a hyper personal level, engage with them enough just to know like what does being okay look like for them, or even saying when you are having those moments where you're feeling really siloed and you want to just kind of shrink to yourself and just be alone, how can I support you best? Asking those questions when they're in the state of being, or excuse me, when they're not in that state, is a game changer. So when that shows up, you know how to support them in a way that actually works for them and not what you think might work. So just those little tidbits are really helpful. And I think it's really critical just with that whole cohesiveness with the team. Now, let's talk about you, the leader, the founder, anyone that has an impact on the team. It's really important for you to take that time to give yourself grace, to be self-aware, and to be intentional. Mindful leadership isn't all about spa days and taking days off only. It's how you practice along the way to pace yourself to not be at the state of having burnout, to make sure that the reason why you started this business may be for a bit for various reasons, but I'm pretty sure that you did not create, start, want to be a leader within a business, be a strategic ops leader, or whatever the case may be. You didn't take on this responsibility to deprive yourself of everything you wanted to do in life. It was a part of it. With that in mind, it is very critical to make sure that you carve out time and space to make sure you check in with yourself, you're honest with yourself, and you receive the feedback that your team has actually shared with you in different ways. So if you have a day, I'm very big on alliteration, so I just blame it on the former educator in me. But I believe in feedback Fridays. So I know that I have less meetings on Fridays. My workload is coming to an end in terms of wrapping up any deliverables I have. So Fridays are more on a downhill slope for me. Mentally, emotionally, and physically, I know I'm in a better state to be able to receive information. So I've done my part to make sure that the team can communicate with me. Then I get to sit with the information that they share with me differently. And then I can see, okay, if they're giving me some type of feedback, whether it be positive, neutral, or otherwise, I want to see what it is they're saying, what it is they're not saying, and how this might show up for me in different ways. How can I be a better leader? Am I taking care of myself in different ways? Because if they are giving me communication about you seem stressed out, you seem a little on edge, whatever the case may be, more than likely there's a correlation with how I'm taking care of myself. As much as I would like to say taking one spa day is going to solve all your problems, it won't. It won't in your business because it's almost like pressing pause and then pressing play. So if you really slow down and incorporate aspects of breaks or just breathing throughout the day, getting up and taking a walk around the block to the mailbox and back, whatever it is you need to do, having jazz music playing throughout the day. That's one of my go-tos. It's like there's something about music that just it makes my soul happy. So I'm consistently listening to music in the background. Music that's not distracting, but music that just kind of makes me feel calm, that makes me feel productive and allows me to get a little boost in my day. Um so another way could even be if you are in a hyper productive state, think about the things that you would want to do or only want to do when you're having your best day. If you're able to do, let's just say, if I have two podcast episodes to record and I'm feeling really good and I have some extra time, record three. So that third one can fill in on the days that you don't feel your best self and you already have one kind of in the vault. I know 3 could be a little excessive, so let's just say if you have 1, do 2. Or if it's you wanna draft an email sequence for your audience, whatever the case may be, then do that and just maybe do an extra one in your time during that time when you're feeling really productive. That's being intentional because you're protecting yourself for the days that don't feel as good, for the days where you're overwhelmed and your schedule gets completely derailed because life life's so hard at times and you have no control and it comes in multiples. And so when that happens, at least you have a buffer. I live for a buffer. So I challenge you to try to incorporate that when you're able. Don't pressure yourself with it, but do that when you're able. So we have self-awareness, we have intentionality, and then you also need to give yourself grace. You are a person too. When you are a leader in a role where you are constantly having to feed into other people, pour into other people, manage, lead, teach, um, be the one that's always answering questions. It is so critical to make sure that you actually give yourself the grace for the days that you don't have it, or for the days that you need to be in a little more solitude. Communicate with your team. That's the whole point of it mindfully leading to where you can honestly say, today I need a focus block of 4 hours. Please ask me anything you need outside of these 4 hours so you can make sure that you are intentional about the time and you get what you need to be done so that you can actually live the life that you want to live outside of working and your responsibilities with work. And one of the things that I constantly have to remind anyone that we work with is to remind them that you are not living to work. You are working to live the life that you want to create for you and the people you care and love the most. So when you realize that you're depriving that consistently, I get sometimes you have your spells where you really need to just kind of ramp up and cover things a certain way. Um, but at the same time, if you're doing that too frequently, then that's when you need to kind of reevaluate. So, just to kind of bring everything together, let's talk about how we can implement practical ways in order to do it on a consistent basis, especially when you're scaling in your business, or at least arriving at that point to where you are scaling, you're amplifying the right things. Um, you want to pause, prioritize, and proceed. So, anytime that you notice that something is becoming overwhelming, it's wise to just pause because you've already been in go mode. Go, 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 go. So slow down. Pause for a minute. Take a look at your surroundings, whether that's and I mean it in a figurative state. Okay, how's my team doing? How are deadlines? How are client deliverables? If everything seems to be kind of struggling, pause so you can actually take a moment to assess what needs to be prioritized because you don't want to impact your revenue and everything like that. So you want to pause, get a bird's eye view of everything that's going on, then you want to prioritize. Once you prioritize, you can create an action plan and then you can proceed. So, in doing that, it allows you to be intentional, slow down, and pace things out in a way that works. When you apply this method, please make sure that you're communicating with your team in a fashion where they know that you might be making a pivot so that you aren't the only one doing so, because when that happens you tend to have unspoken expectations. We want to avoid that part because we're building trust, we're leading intentionally. So that's one thing to be mindful of. Use weekly check-ins to the point where it might even just be temporary, but use weekly check-ins until you get to a point to where you feel like things are kind of evened out. And if that cadence seems to work better, then consistently, like, keep that in your routine and in your regimen. That way, your team can continue to benefit from it. Because if it's working, why would you remove it? So if it is working, then keep it in. But if you realize that we don't really have the same need, maybe weekly turns into bi-weekly, whatever it is. But keep something in place to make sure that you keep that connection going so you don't slip back in the same routines. And then when it comes to mindful team leadership, know how to slow down and delegate the right way so that you can build trust and capacity within yourself. You miss a lot of opportunities not allowing people to have inspired ownership of whatever the activity is that you need to give away anyway. And so the more that you allow your team to apply what they've been taught, coached on, life experiences, etc., the more you deprive them of that opportunity, the more you're undermining their ability to grow into the person that you can see on your team, as well as just the overall better human. And I don't mean better as if they're not great already. I'm saying if we're thinking about them reaching their potential, you're depriving them of that opportunity. And a part of leadership is bringing out the best in people, not for your own gain, but for their own growth and development. So be the type of leader that allows yourself to let go enough, because once you do that and they have inspired ownership, you then will be able to increase your trust in a manner that will allow you to also increase your capacity. So there's this duality to where you're able to step away from the business when you need to. You can trust that it's going to be done. And when your capacity increases, that mindful leadership starts to pay off in a way where you're not feeling burnt out. You're not feeling that you can't step away on a consistent basis. So just wanted to take a moment to kind of dive into that, especially as everyone's talking about mental health awareness and everything like that. But it really is about slowing down enough to be able to assess and then follow that assessment up with action and actually executing and being consistent and holding yourself to it. I am so excited that we got to talk today. I am going to do my best to make sure that we engage a little bit more, whether that be with Krista or it be with another special guest that we have on the show. But either way it goes, I'm excited that I got to share my thoughts and feelings about this particular topic because I'm extremely passionate about it. And I think that we all can collectively do a little bit better on just taking care of ourselves, taking care of our team members, because it's an ongoing practice. And so if you found something beneficial about anything that we covered today, or if there was something that wasn't mentioned, leave it in the comments. Do whatever you can to just engage and keep the conversation going, because this is something that should be talked about year round, not just in the month of May. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to engaging with you all so much more. Have an amazing week.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Simplify to Scale. If you'd like to take things further, I invite you to join me for my Scale Smarter, Not Harder interactive workshop. Head to strategicopsinstitute.com/scale smarter to get registered. Not only will we dive into what might be keeping you trapped in the day-to-day, but you'll have the opportunity to ask me your questions live. If you got value out of today's episode, I'd love if you'd take a moment and rate and review the show so more businesses can learn to scale more simply and sustainably. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I'll see you again next week.